As I walked across the stage to get my college diploma, I knew there wasn't a single person in the crowd just for me. I sat down alone and glanced at a text from my mom. She was too busy to be there. Later that night, I found out too busy meant partying with billionaires on a red carpet in Monaco. But the real shock was something else entirely. So let's back up a bit. My name is Jaden, I'm 22, and for years the only thing I really wanted was to make my mom proud. It's been just the two of us for as long as I can remember. My dad was never in the picture. That whole topic was sealed behind a wall of, "It's complicated, and we don't go there." So all my energy, all my hopes were aimed at her. My mom, Catherine. She wasn't a bad mom, not really. We had a roof over our heads and there was always food. She worked in high-end real estate, a world that seemed to sparkle from a distance. She was always perfectly dressed, her voice a smooth, practiced melody she used to charm people into buying multi-million-dollar homes. But that melody was rarely for me. Her affection felt conditional. It was tied to my performance. A good report card earned a tight, quick smile. Getting on the debate team got me a nod. But there was always this pane of glass between us I could never break through. I think she loved the idea of a successful son, but the real me, a quiet kid who loved history and poetry, felt like a constant, low-grade disappointment. College was supposed to change everything. I got into a state school, not an Ivy League, a fact she noted with a faint sigh. I decided to major in art history, a choice that was met with a long, heavy silence on the phone, finally broken by a flat, "And what do you do with that?" I didn't have the perfect answer, but I was passionate about it. To me, history wasn't just dates and dead kings. It was humanity's story told through beauty. I promised her and myself that I'd work harder than anyone. I would make this degree count. And I did. Those 4 years were a grind. I wasn't a genius. Everything I got was through pure effort. I worked 2 part-time jobs, one in the campus library surrounded by the comforting smell of old books, and another waiting tables at a diner where the smell of grease stuck to my clothes. Sleep was a luxury. My diet was mostly instant noodles and cheap coffee. There were nights I'd be shelving books until midnight, then race to a coffee shop to write a paper due at 8 a.m., only to catch 2 hours of sleep before my diner shift. I remember one brutal winter during my junior year. I got mono, a nasty case that left me exhausted and barely able to swallow. My professors were cool about it, but the deadlines didn't move. I called my mom, my voice a weak croak, just hoping for a little sympathy. Instead, I could hear glasses clinking in the background. "Jaden, I'm at a networking event," she said, her voice tight with annoyance. "You're a grown man, you can handle a cold. Just drink some tea." I have to go. It wasn't a cold. And I just wanted to feel like her son for a minute, not an inconvenience. I hung up and cried, not from the pain in my throat, but from that familiar ache in my chest. Fueled by fever and a desperate need to prove her wrong, I finished my midterm paper on Italian Renaissance sculpture. I got an A. I sent her a screenshot. Her reply was one word: good. As senior year rolled around, graduation felt like this mythical finish line. In my head, that was the day the glass between us would finally break. It was the moment all the lonely nights and sacrifices would pay off. I imagined her in the audience looking at me, really looking at me, with pride. I started planning months ahead. I sent her the save the date email. Her reply: "I'll check my calendar." Weeks passed. I sent her the link for guest tickets. "I'll get to it," she texted back. 2 weeks before the ceremony, the knot in my stomach was permanent. I called her. "Mom, have you booked your flight yet? I can help you find a hotel." Pause. I knew that pause. It was the one that came right before an excuse. "Jaden, honey," she started, her voice slipping into that smooth tone she used with difficult clients. "Something's come up. A work thing. It's really big. I'm just not sure I can get away." "A work thing?" My voice sounded tiny. "Mom, this is my graduation. I worked so hard for this." "I know you have, and I am so proud of you," she said, but the words felt rehearsed and empty. "But this is a huge opportunity for me. For us. You know how important my career is." She ended with a vague promise to try to move things around. But I knew she wasn't coming. "Do you enjoy family drama?" Like subscribe. The day before graduation, the final text arrived. I was in my dorm room, surrounded by boxes, my life packed away. My phone buzzed. "So sorry, darling. Just swamped. No way I can make it. We'll celebrate when you're back. Knock him dead tomorrow. Love you." I just stared at the screen. Swamped. It felt like a punch to the gut. The thousands of hours, the sleepless nights, all of it brushed aside by a casual text. My friends were already gone, off to celebratory dinners with parents who had flown in from across the country. I was completely alone. The next morning, I put on my cap and gown by myself. I adjusted the tassel in my reflection. No one was there to take a picture or fix my collar. I walked to the stadium, a single person in a sea of joyful families. I found my seat, surrounded by classmates busy waving to their loved ones in the stands. I didn't even look. I knew there would just be an empty seat where my mom was supposed to be. When my name was called, Jaden Miller, Bachelor of Arts, Magna Cum Laude, there was a polite ripple of applause from the crowd, the background noise of other people's joy. I walked across the stage, shook the dean's hand, and took my diploma. As I glanced out at the thousands of strangers, a stupid, desperate part of me still hoped to see her face. Nothing. Just a blur. I walked back to my seat, sat down, and truly understood what it felt like to be utterly alone. My graduation night was the loneliest of my life. I skipped all the parties. I couldn't stand the thought of faking a smile or answering the question, "Where's your family?" I went back to my empty apartment, ordered a pizza I couldn't eat, and just sat on the floor. The silence in the room was deafening. I spent the next 2 days like a zombie, packing and cleaning. My celebration with my mom was that weekend. I drove the 3 hours home, my diploma on the passenger seat like a silent, mocking trophy. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted her to understand how much she'd hurt me. When I walked into her perfect, sterile house, she greeted me with a kiss on the cheek and a bright, "There's my graduate." I got champagne. She was in a chic pantsuit, looking like she'd just stepped out of a magazine, a sharp contrast to my stained t-shirt and the exhaustion on my face. She poured 2 glasses. "To you, Jaden. On to bigger and better things." The clink of her glass against mine felt so fake. I couldn't do it. I put my glass down. "Mom, we need to talk about why you weren't there." Her smile tightened. "Jaden, we went over this. Was work. Unavoidable." "What was it?" I asked, my voice firmer than I expected. "What was so important you had to miss your only son's graduation?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, it's boring real estate stuff. A conference. You wouldn't understand." You wouldn't understand. The 4 words she'd always used to keep me at a distance. I decided to let it go. Arguing was pointless. We had a tense dinner, and I went to bed feeling even emptier than before. That night I couldn't sleep. I was just mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, numbing my brain when I saw it. My thumb froze. My heart started pounding. The photo was from 2 nights ago, posted by a luxury lifestyle account. The caption read, "A night of stars at the Forbes Travel Guide Summit Gala in Monaco." It was a James Bond-themed party. The photo showed a glittering ballroom, chandeliers, and people in tuxedos and designer gowns. My eyes scanned the crowd, and there she was. My mother. She was in a small group, laughing, holding a glass of champagne. She wore a stunning, floor-length emerald green gown. Her hand was on the arm of some man in a tux. She looked radiant. Happy. Like she belonged there. This wasn't some boring conference. This was one of the most glamorous, invitation-only events in the world. The same night I sat alone at my graduation, my mother was in Monaco, partying with the global elite. The air went out of my lungs. It wasn't just a lie. It was a betrayal so deep I could barely process it. She hadn't been too busy. She just got a better offer. A cold, white-hot rage washed over me. I got out of bed, phone clutched in my hand, and walked to her bedroom. I didn't knock. I just flipped on the light. She shot up in bed. "Jaden? What on earth?" "It's 3 in the morning." I didn't say a word. I just held out the phone, the screen glowing with the picture of her in that green dress. I saw the recognition in her eyes, followed by pure panic. Her face went pale. "Explain this," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. She stammered, "Jaden, it's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" I laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. "It looks like you're in Monaco. At a party. With billionaires. It looks like you lied to me." My voice started to rise. "You told me you were at a boring conference. You missed my graduation, the most important day of my life, to go to a party." "It was a work event," she shrieked. "The most important networking opportunity of my career. You don't understand the pressure I'm under." "I don't understand?" I was shouting now, years of hurt boiling over. "I understand I spent 4 years killing myself for that diploma. I did it to make you proud. I understand I sat in that stadium all by myself, looking at an empty chair where my mother was supposed to be. And the whole time, you were on another continent, sipping champagne and lying to my face." Tears were streaming down my face. "Was it worth it, Mom?" I really hope you impressed all those rich people. I hope it was worth it. I turned to leave, unable to look at her. Wait, she cried out, her voice breaking with a desperation I'd never heard before. I stopped, my back to her. Jaden, please, she sobbed. You're right. I lied. But there's more. Something you don't know. I turned around slowly. She was hunched over, her face in her hands. The powerful woman I knew had crumbled. What? I asked, a cold dread creeping in. What don't I know? She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. It's about your father, she whispered. Your real father. My real father. The words just hung there. My entire life, the story was simple. He was a brief, regrettable mistake who wanted nothing to do with us. A ghost. But the look on her face told me that was just another lie. She motioned for me to sit down, and for the first time she really looked at me like her son. The story she told me came out in a rush of long-buried secrets. She wasn't a real estate agent back then. She was 21, an art student studying in Paris. She met a man. Not just any man, he was the heir to a massive European industrial fortune. He was charming and worldly, and for 6 months she lived a fairy tale. Private jets, parties in Monaco, weekends in Italian villas. She fell completely in love. And then she got pregnant. The fairy tale shattered. When she told him, he turned to ice. A child with an American art student wasn't in his life plan. His family would never approve. He offered her money to take care of the problem. When she refused, he vanished. His family's lawyers made it clear. If she ever tried to contact him or go public, they would ruin her. She came back to the States with a broken heart and a secret. She gave up on art, on her own dreams, and threw herself into building a life that looked successful on the outside. High-end real estate was her way to get close to the world that had thrown her away. I never stopped loving him, she whispered, tears rolling down her face. And I've spent 22 years trying to prove that he was wrong. I wanted to build an empire, to become so successful that one day he would see us, see you, and regret what he lost. Suddenly, it all made a horrible kind of sense. Her obsession with status. Her disappointment in my choice of school and my art history degree. It wasn't prestigious enough. It wouldn't register in the world she was so desperate to get back into. The Forbes gala in Monaco, it wasn't just a party. It was a pilgrimage. It was a chance to breathe that air again. In her twisted way, she thought she was doing it for me, making connections that would somehow lead to our validation. So my whole life, I said slowly, the words tasting like ash, has been about impressing a man I've never met? A man who didn't want me? She just sobbed. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room and watched the sun come up, replaying my entire childhood. Every push to be more prestigious, every criticism, it was never about me. I was just a pawn in her war against a ghost. The anger was gone. In its place was just this deep, bottomless sadness. Sadness for the little boy who just wanted his mom's approval, and for the young woman whose heart was so broken she spent her life chasing a phantom. When she came downstairs the next morning, I finally broke the silence. I'm not him, Mom, I said. And my life isn't a tool for your revenge. My successes are mine. My failures are mine. They have nothing to do with him. I told her I was moving out. Not out of anger, but because I had to. I needed to figure out who I was, separate from her pain. Those first few months were tough. I got a tiny apartment a few hours away and found a job at a community arts center, teaching art history to underprivileged kids. The pay was terrible, but for the first time I felt a purpose that was all mine. Seeing a kid's face light up when they learned about Van Gogh gave me a pride that no grade ever could. I started building a new family, my colleagues, the kids in my classes, friends who knew me for me. My relationship with my mom is still a work in progress. There's no fairy tale ending. We talk, but I set boundaries. I don't need her approval anymore, and weirdly, that's allowed her to finally start seeing me. She's in therapy now. Some days she still slips up and asks about my salary. I just politely end the conversation. But other days she asks about my students. A few weeks ago, a small package arrived. Inside was a framed photo, the selfie I took in my cap and gown, forcing a smile. On the back was a handwritten note. It said, "I'm so proud of the man you have become. All on your own. Love, Mom." That little note means more to me than any diploma. My validation didn't come from getting rich or proving anyone wrong. It came from the quiet realization that I don't need my mother, or some billionaire father, to define my worth. My life's value isn't measured by a guest list in Monaco. It's measured in the passion I have for my work and the peace that comes from finally being yourself. I walked across that stage alone, but I'm not alone anymore. If you've ever had to find your own path or define success on your own terms, away from family expectations, I'd be honored to read your story in the comments. Thank you for listening.